welcome, Carly.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, so we're honored to have Carly Gaddie here today with us, student wellness and facilitator with Fargo Public Schools. Carly, who works along with Cassie Larson, school counselor at Eagles Elementary here in Fargo, are the duo behind the popular Here for the Kids podcast. The podcast discusses a variety of topics and shares information and ideas on those topics. And for those of you who follow, some of the topic areas are, school, mental health, home life, building relationships. And so I'm going to just share the link for those who maybe want to go back and see some of the prior podcasts that have been posted on the YouTube channel for Here for the Kids. And so Carly and Cassie graciously agreed to create a new podcast recording, and that premiered today, I think like within the last hour. Carly, keep me honest there, but I think it was just really recently published on YouTube on the YouTube channel. And
That's
so we're going to be some of the very first people to get to view that episode. So super excited. And Cassie wasn't able to make it today, but Carly, thanks for being able to join today. Appreciate you taking the time to show us the podcast, but also to answer any questions with the time we have left at the end. So with that, Carly, I'm going to thank you again for joining and turn it over to you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you for thinking of Cassie and I and Here for the Kids and our podcast and inviting us to present here today at the PTA State Convention. We were pretty excited. And so because Cassie was unable to join us, we recorded this earlier, and I will show this kind of as our presentation. And we recorded it in the style that we typically do, which is basically us talking to each other about these issues. And then at the end, I'll come back on. And so be thinking as you're watching this, if you have questions, whether that's about our podcast or any of the things that we are talking about, I would love to share information and really tailor my responses to any questions that you have. So one would think after so much Zoom, I would be like really great at screen sharing and figuring this out. So bear with me as I try to share my screen. Of course, it doesn't come up. So hold on a second. Let me find it and see if I can figure this out. Otherwise, Jeff, I'll ask you to share it.
Okay.
Which maybe I will.
I'll start bringing it up here just in case you can't get it to her.
I can. Doesn't want to show up for me on my screens. Are you okay sharing it, Jeff?
Yep, let me just bring it over here on a screen I can share with easier.
Sorry, I'm like the least techie person out there. Even after all this time, you would think I could do this.
That's okay. We got your back.
Thank you. Yeah.
Share my screen out. This will be the screen right here. Make it full screen. And I'll just go ahead and start running it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Carly Gaddie.
And I'm Cassie Larson.
And
we host a podcast called Here for the Kids through the Fargo Public Schools.
That's right. We would like to thank the PTA conference for hosting us, and we apologize that we are here over pre-recorded video and not live with you today, but we are hopeful that you are having a great conference and that we will be sharing some information that you find valuable.
Absolutely. And later on in our session today, we're going to talk about saying no and setting limits. And my son had a soccer game today, like while you're watching this video. And so I said no, but I would like to record this session. So we appreciate you forgiving us and watching this recorded video.
Well, and I do hope as this, we're recording this, but I will plan to be there for some questions. So as you're watching this and you have questions, I will be with you live for about 15 minutes. So.
Awesome.
And
Carly, maybe we should tell a little bit about our jobs, who we are, why we were invited to be on today.
Sure. That's a great idea. So again, my name is Carly Gaddie. I am a student wellness and family facilitator in the Fargo Public Schools. And we call ourselves SWIFs. And you're probably like, what in the world what's a SWIF? And I'm a social worker, and my job is I work in elementary schools at the elementary level, primarily in Fargo. And my job is to, Cassie's telling me that I'm cutting out a little bit, and maybe you're able to see that on my screen, but I sure hope that as you're watching this, I'm not cutting out. But my job is to work with primarily parents and students to connect them to resources in the community that will be beneficial to help ensure success at school. This can be many things. This can be helping families with food or clothing, so kids aren't coming to school with empty bellies. It can be larger things like applying for insurance or connecting to mental health services in the community, doctor's appointments, things, just whatever it takes for students to be successful in school.
And I am a school counselor at Eagles Elementary School in Fargo. And school counselors are a really unique job, I think. I always tell kids that I have the best job because my job is just to help all the kids in the building. And while I know that elementary looks a little bit different than middle school and high school, I would say that overall our job is to help students with academic success, social and emotional success, and then also with career success. So preparing our children to be successful in the world beyond school. But as an elementary counselor, I do frequent classroom lessons on emotion management, empathy, problem solving. And then the rest of the time I spend with individuals and groups, and we really do talk about anything related to social and emotional or mental health stress, right? So friendship, grief and loss, changing families, mood, feeling sad, anxiety, worries, and it's meant to be like a short-term solution. So hopefully things improve after 6 to 8 visits with a student. And if they don't, then I will refer on to therapists in our community to help kids. So it's just like a great first stop in helping kids with their mental health and their social and emotional struggles, and then referring on as needed. And we feel fortunate to also be advocates in our community. And so that's something that Carly and I are really passionate about, is sharing information with our community, with parents, stakeholders in the public school, and helping to guide families along that path as well. So a couple of years ago, Carly came to me and said, like, hey, I have this great idea that we should have a podcast. And so that's where Here for the Kids really came out, to be able to share snippets and information about social and emotional stress, mental health, general well-being for children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it kind of came out, it originally came out as a podcast, thinking 10 to 15 minutes on a topic as people drive across town, right? After dropping their kids off at school, maybe, or headed to work or home from work. And then with the pandemic, as so many things shifted, we decided that, actually, we recorded a session and didn't realize we also recorded video. And then because, we're so techy, and then got some feedback that people really enjoyed seeing us. And so hence we then started video. We now have a YouTube channel. And so if you're interested in some of our other topics, you can access them on our YouTube site, which I will link.
Perfect. So today we were invited to talk about stress, and I think that this is a very broad topic that really could lead lots of different ways. But I also think it's a super relevant topic because we are all really stressed out.
Absolutely.
Maybe Carly, I am. I'm really stressed out.
I appreciate always your authenticity, Cassie. I think that for me, stress is something that kind of ebbs and flows. But I feel like, I feel like here we are, it is the middle of September, and I feel like I am carrying the weight of for the school year, of typically how I feel in February. And we're just a couple weeks in. And I think, I don't want to get too far before we express some gratitude, but I will say that I know that I felt it coming back this school year, because I felt such relief and hope at the end of last school year, feeling like we made it through this year. And then
COVID's over, masks are over, vaccines are here, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was like, and now we're back and we're doing it, and it's good, but there's still the COVID restrictions and masks, and it's this reminder that we are in this what is feeling like a never-ending pandemic. So we'll touch on these things.
Okay, so we're going to talk about stress. Carly and I love to talk about gratitude. So we're going to talk about gratitude and the wonderful benefits it has for our brain and brain development. And then we're also just going to touch on concerns and ways to watch out for our children and things to be aware of. So you can expect those 3 topics for us, and we hope that you enjoy your visit. This isn't a visit, but I hope you enjoy this webinar and save some questions for Carly at the end. So with that, Carly, let's start with gratitude. What is gratitude?
Well, gratitude is expressing verbally or in writing some form of appreciation or thankfulness for something in your life. You can do this in a journal. You can do this by writing a note to a friend, an email to a friend, a text to a friend. Yesterday, one of my best friends actually sent me this. Because I'm not techie and I'm kind of old. She sent me a TikTok video saying, I saw this and I thought of you. And it was this very heartfelt video on friendship. And anyway, sorry, someone must be, we're filming this during the school day and someone's at Cassie's store. But I will take a second to say that I feel grateful that my daughter is so brave this year, and she is trying a new activity, and it has pushed her out of her comfort zone. But I'm just so grateful that she is sticking with this and growing every day. And I'm so grateful for her perseverance and bravery.
Awesome. So gratitude for me is a daily practice. We try to use it in our family at dinner time. We talk about 3 good things, one thing that we maybe didn't like during the day, because I also want to hear that too, so that we can grow from those experiences. So sometimes we talk about our 3 good things being something as small as a nice meal together, a pickup and a smile from our kids when we're embracing them at the end of the day, a dessert, right? So on days that are really hard to find things to feel grateful for, we really scoop down and find little things, because really I think that's what life is about, right? Is finding joy in those little things, little moments. But I feel so grateful that even though we are in really the 3rd school year that has been impacted by pandemic stress, I work with some really great professionals who are just still here to do what's best for kids every day. And we might be super stressed out ourselves, but we show up and we do everything we can to support these kids. And I feel that in the building that I'm in. I feel that when I talk to Carly here and other professionals in the public schools. And so I just have a whole lot of gratitude for teachers and teaching staff, and really any parent out there that's just continuing to do the best they can, even though this has been hard.
Yeah, I certainly echo that, right?
Yeah. And so I hope that after this webinar, I think it's called a webinar. I'm not sure what to call this. But I am hopeful there's announcements that keep happening at my school. I'm so sorry about this, but I'm hopeful that a takeaway that you might have is that I could start practicing this in my day-to-day life and see if it has positive impacts on your brain and how you're thinking and your mood.
Great. And I would encourage anyone right now who's watching this, from their home, take out your phone, send a quick text to a friend or someone maybe you haven't communicated with for a while saying, I appreciate you, or I'm thinking of you. And maybe say what it is, I appreciate your laughter. Whatever it is that resonates with you, that's a really simple thing to do. Perhaps you're sitting at your home right now and you have a note card. I would encourage you to start writing. And like Cassie said, we do this at my dinner table as well. We take time to express gratitude. And it can, as Cassie mentioned, it can be about really simple things. The rule that we have at our house is it can't be what you mentioned yesterday. So you have to, maybe it was dessert last night is one of the things. So tonight I maybe hope that you're grateful we're having your favorite vegetable. I don't know. But
you can't say recess every day. I like recess. I like recess. I like recess. Mm-hmm. It's a good rule.
Yep. But certainly one way to help manage stress, because sometimes I think when we feel so overwhelmed, we start seeing the negative. And this is a way to remind ourselves of the positive things that are occurring in our lives. So.
This is reminding me of a conversation I had with a student yesterday, and she just was really feeling a lot on her plate, a fifth grader. She had all this stuff going on. And I said to her, well, what is something that is usually helpful for you? And she said, well, I try to turn my negative ants into positive ants. And I'm like, tell me about that. And she said, well, they're like ants in my brain because they invade and they feel like they're everywhere, these negative thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I try to pick one at a time and turn it into a positive thought. And maybe that's kind of a gross description, but it really stuck with me. The way that they do, negativity just kind of creeps in, and it's really easy to let it take over. And so by training your brain to think more positively, we're also slowly training it to get rid of those negative thoughts that creep in and consume us. And so I think it's a really great practice to have.
Yeah.
I was probably stuck on the ants.
I am stuck on the ants. I am. But just the visual, anyway, it's too much. But I love that the student had a way to describe it and a strategy for shifting to some positive thinking.
Poor Carly, she never knows what I'm going to say. So this is not scripted, people. I apologize.
So, but let's take a minute and talk a little bit about why we're probably feeling stressed. As you mentioned, Cassie, this is the third school year impacted by the pandemic. I don't think that, in March of 2019, right, that when school, 2020, sorry,
yeah.
Yes, my year. I was like, wasn't that long? Thank you for correcting my year. That March, when school closed and we went remote, I don't know that I thought I was going to be sitting here still in a pandemic in September of 2021. I remember someone saying at that time, this might last until September of 2020. And I was like, what? We're going to go back to the school year with this? No. And so it's been long. And I think we've asked a lot of parents during this time, school personnel for sure. I mean, we are all in this together, but I know that people are tired. And with tiredness and kind of the unknown of how long is this going to last? How long are we going to be social distancing and wearing masks and continuing to see rising COVID numbers?
I think it really feels like we're asking a lot of our kids, and I know that, and we don't want to get into a debate here, but I think that is one thing that I can understand from both sides, right? Is that we just want what's best for our kids, but also it feels like we've really asked a lot of them. And I've been shocked by how resilient they have been through the whole thing. I mean, the kids I see here at school are just like every day is just like another regular day. And I think that it's almost been more challenging on us adults in some ways. But yeah, I mean, third year, it's just crazy. And I think back to when this all first happened, there was a lot of fear at first, but then there was also like this acceptance period of like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like I can stay home with my family for 3 months and just focus on us and keeping us safe. And we can do this, right? So it's like our brain built these protective factors that are allowing us to power on. We can do this short term. But then when it continued on, well, then summer came, so it was like a little bit of a relief. But when it continued on and on, that's when our brain just gets tired. So those protective factors are starting to wear down, and stress is really just starting to feel overwhelming for some people.
And I think part of kind of managing that stress, like you said, our brains are wearing down, right? Like we're tired, we're feeling stressed, is accepting that life is different now. And like you said, we have asked a lot of our kids, but I think our kids, I mean, the students I see, right, we're doing great. They, I think, have, again, also to your point, right, accepted that life is different. Like, okay, in Fargo Public Schools, we're wearing masks, and they're doing it. And they just sort of accepted, like, I have children in the Fargo Public Schools, and they just accept that I'm going to school and putting my mask on.
Yeah. I would say an exception to that, Carly, would be, I did see with some kids that were really isolated, that was hard. Some kids like that. Some kids would maybe prefer to always be at home because it feels safe there, right? But I did see some students that really struggled with that distance learning, half here, half at school, and just wanting to be in that social environment. So I would say that's the exception. And I think we're lucky that this year that's not an option, right? We're all just here. Together in this together.
But I think kind of that acceptance of life is different is like the phases that we've gone through with school, right? Like school is closed down, school is hybrid, school could be full-time virtual, and now school is for most students full-time in person unless they've chosen a different option. So
yep. And I know that some families that's scary too, right? So that's another layer, but it is knowing that that we are all in the same position. And I think that's helpful. It's helpful to for me anyways, in moments of it's like, wait a minute, we are all in this same position. Every person in the world is experiencing the same pandemic. And there is some sort of comfort in that, right? That we are all going through the same experience. You might have different ideas than me. I might have different ideas than you. But when it comes down to it, we are all still living in the same reality. And we're not alone.
No, we're not alone. Right.
And then I think along those lines, really remembering to reach out to those people that you do feel comfortable with, that you do feel like provide you with the support that you need.
Right.
That's a protective factor.
Right. Because I think that, you and I last year had many conversations, Cassie, about just the ongoing pandemic and stress. And I'd, reach out and be like, Cassie, this is feeling overwhelming today. This is feeling stressful today. And like you said, everyone can understand this right now because everyone is experiencing and living it.
I'm not laughing because this is funny, but I just have this reminder of how many times I cried last year in my office. And so maybe this year has been a better year because I haven't done that yet. It does get so overwhelming sometimes.
Yes, it's overwhelming, and feelings should be acknowledged and experienced. And also, I think that's part of grief, which I think this pandemic has caused a lot of grief and loss for people. Maybe people have lost a loved one. Maybe they're grieving the way life was before the pandemic. Perhaps they're grieving that we're still in the pandemic, right? That there's just a lot of emotion tied to it all.
Yes, and I think it's so important to acknowledge that that's okay. It's okay.
Absolutely.
The way that you're feeling is okay. Maybe you're watching this and thinking, I feel fine. That's okay too. But it's also okay if you're not feeling fine, because this is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like your kids maybe aren't feeling fine, like we're talking about how kids are resilient. Kids are resilient, but maybe some of our kids are having a really hard time with this. And that's okay too.
Right. Right.
It's important to acknowledge all the different stages and feelings that people might be having.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think when I think about this, it's almost like toxic stress, really, like day to day stress after stress after stress. We really need to be able to develop things in our lives that are going to provide comfort and provide relief. And I'm hoping that that's one positive thing that comes out of the pandemic. I just read I saw a clip on CNN, I think it was, that dads are reevaluating their workload after spending so much extra time with their family, like statistically, I guess, during the pandemic. And so I do hope that there's positives that come out of this experience for us. And if it is things like looking at our health, right? Looking at our wellness, taking the time to go for walks, taking the time to have physical fitness, taking the time to spend more time together. Because those are protective factors, actually, that will help mood, help reduce stress, but also really improve relationships in our lives too. Mm-hmm. So that's a hope of mine, is that we have some good things that come out of this.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the things you just named are those resiliency pieces, right? Like paying attention to nutrition, getting some physical activity, whatever that is, if that's a walk, if it's yoga, if it's, whatever you enjoy doing. Looking at that kind of like work-life balance and how many hours am I working? How can I change that? And then strengthening relationships. And with friends or family members, reaching out, talking, connecting, however you are comfortable with during this time.
Yes, and renewing yourself, right? All those things will allow you to push reset. I know we did a podcast last year on like hitting reset, right? Like allowing yourself to take a break and to kind of start each day new with some positivity.
Right. Yeah, giving yourself some grace, right? That this is ongoing and it continues to be hard. And because of that, right, there are some days where you might feel great and forget that you're living in a pandemic. And then there might be other days where it's like, oh my goodness, I can't, I'm tired of handling all of this.
Mm-hmm. Right, which is why I think summer vacation feels kind of good, right? Because you're like, for me anyways, I'm off in nature and exploring life and doing these things, and you kind of forget. And then back at school, it's like you're kind of hit with that reality again of, oh, this is still happening. This is still going on.
Right.
And that's hard.
It is
Carly,
hard.
would you say that like those same preventative factors are for our kids too? Like we're kind of talking from adult standpoint here, how to renew ourselves. How do we support our kids in that?
Yeah, I would say, pay attention to sleep for your kids. How many hours are they sleeping per night? Are they waking up feeling rested, or are they tired? Are they having difficulty going to sleep, or are they waking up a lot in the night? Like those are some things to look at.
Mm-hmm. I know I was shocked. I was looking at sleep recommendations, and even teenagers and high schoolers are still supposed to be getting like close to 10 hours of sleep at night because their brains are doing so much developing and changing. And I'm sure there's lots of parents who are thinking, yeah, my kids do not get that much sleep because of how many activities and things that they're involved in, but really allowing them that amount of time is very helpful.
I would also, go ahead.
And I was going to say, for younger kids, actually, like upwards of 12 hours even.
Yeah.
And allowing for a nice bedtime routine.
Absolutely. So you touched on routine. I think routine is important in a time that feels unpredictable. So kind of having, whether that's a bedtime routine or a schedule that your family does every night, knowing that perhaps, it can't be followed every day, but most days, that really gives kids a sense of security and safety.
And I think that actually something that you just said rang a bell for me that, I hear a lot from adults, sometimes staff, like, why are these kids doing this? Like, it seems like they just want all this control, But I think that is a sign that some of these kids are feeling stressed out, because when we do not have that control, we really do seek it out. So allowing, so if you see that in your child, that they really seem like they're needing lots of control, it might be a sign that they're experiencing some stress in their life, or some anxiety in their life. So that might be seen as kind of like a warning sign, but allowing them then the ability to make as many choices as they can, right, within reason.
Right, choices that you approve of. Right,
choices you approve of. Mm-hmm. Then also providing the safety through a great structure and routine, like Carly mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And then I think one thing is also for our kids during COVID is connection. Again, that connection piece, I think some of those were lost for kids, or I shouldn't say lost, disrupted is perhaps the word I like better, due to various changes with COVID. So maybe the sport or drama or music, that they were really excited about or passionate about, was paused for a period of time, or perhaps different family feelings on what's kind of healthy or acceptable for their families. They made some different choices about that. So I think really thinking about how to reconnect your kids if there's an activity outside of school that they've been interested in exploring, or that they are passionate about, because those are great social outlets for kids and necessary and important for their development. And I think that's an area that has been harder during the pandemic.
I do. I think that I can reflect on conversations that I've had with students, and just feeling like, one more thing that's been taken away from them has been the hardest thing. So we talk about, you see lots of stuff about masks in the news. That's not what kids are talking about. If I'm being honest with you, what they're talking about is feeling kind of gypped off, or whatever the word might be. I don't know what the appropriate word is, but like missing out on these experiences that they feel like they should have. Clubs, activities, like you said, people in their lives. We had so much stuff restricted, especially at the school level last year. Mm-hmm. The kids were really feeling like they were missing those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I just made up a word, and I apologize about that.
Well, I just think that students feel on various levels like it's been unfair, right?
Unfair.
Mm-hmm.
That is the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so what are ways that we can, again, build community and connect our kiddos in ways that feel safe for our families, and that our families are supportive of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what if, Cassie, we're both parents, and we work with parents, we work with students, but what if you're watching your kiddo, or you're talking to a friend, and they're like, I don't think my child seems to be struggling to manage, or maybe even just struggling right now. What would you say? Are there questions you would ask? How would you?
Yeah, I'm thinking two different things right now. I'm thinking maybe we should talk about warning signs, like things that you might see and wonder, is my child feeling really stressed? Then also what do we do afterwards? Right. So when I think about those warning signs, I think about, before we talked about sleep, maybe interrupted sleep, not being able to fall asleep, but maybe also sleeping too much, right? Mm-hmm. So we've lost interest in our activities. Yep. So we had activities taken away to some extent, unless you did private clubs last year. So maybe that's happened, but also just lack of interest in even trying. Like, I'm not even interested anymore in trying to connect with people. I'm not even interested anymore with lots of the same day-to-day stuff that I usually enjoy.
Being withdrawn.
Maybe change in weight, whether it's an increase in weight or a decrease in weight, just anything that's unexpected or out of the ordinary. More physical signs. I mean, we look like we're not sleeping or we're not well, right? But also maybe like secretive behavior, like I'm kind of hiding from you. I'm not being as open with you as I usually am. The more extreme end, if we have kids that are so stressed out that they're maybe like self-harming, they might be wearing long sleeves and warm clothes, even when it's hot outside, and trying to kind of hide their body. I am an advocate for checking our kids' phones, not like obsessively every day, but making sure that you have those safety nets in place. And it's okay. It is your property as an adult, if you have concerns about your child, to look and see what kinds of things are they spending their time on. So I think that those are things that we can watch for and look out for.
Right, because I think parents sometimes doubt themselves, and to really try to empower yourself that you know your child the best of all. So if something kind of seems off and you're noticing some of these signs, like, trust yourself. Maybe something probably is. And so, while there are students who are very articulate and can express their emotions very well, like, I'm struggling right now, maybe that's not your child, and so you have to look for some of these signs that Cassie just mentioned. And then
I think about some of the best times to have that conversation. I've read in research that kids feel a lot less intimidated when they're not looking at you. So maybe not at the dinner table, what's going on? That might not be helpful, but like, we're on a walk together. Maybe I'm driving you somewhere and you're in the back seat. And you're just like, hey, whatever. You might want to start the conversation with, or then also for whatever reason, bedtime seems to bring out a lot of things from kids, right? Kids like to talk at bedtime, which is nice. So if you have that time in your schedule to spend a couple of minutes before bed, the kind of bonding and connecting, I think that can be helpful. But really just opening the door and letting your child know that you're there and you want to listen and you want to hear what they have to say, and allowing them that safe space to talk.
And to also remind that maybe you're that person, maybe they're going to share it with you as the parent, that maybe they want to tell a grandparent or extended family member or other trusted adult in their life. I feel like as long as kids are talking to someone and expressing how they're feeling, like, that's a good thing.
Yeah. And if you have this feeling like there's something going on here, and your child is like, no, there's not, I'm fine, back off. A great first stop might be your school counselor. You might want to call or send an email to the counselor and just say like, hey, my child it seems like they're a little off. Would you mind spending some time with them? And, we are always happy to do that. The preventative end is a great place to start, right? Like, I would love to spend time with kids in that preventative, proactive way. And in other ways too, but it's really nice to have that communication with families. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. School is a partner. And I also think, if your child is established with a pediatrician or family medicine doctor, and I think that's also another good place to start, just to make sure that there isn't something physically going on, in their body. And also it's such a great example of these are the types of things that people talk to their doctors about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not to like completely divert us off topic, but you're so right. When my own children had many things we just talked about besides mood control, even some mood concerns, and he ended up having celiac disease. So there can be physical reasons for changes in diet and sleep pattern and even mood sometimes too. So it is so important to have those things ruled out.
Mm-hmm. And then I think if you've maybe reached out to the school counselor or you've talked to your doctor and maybe you're like, and your child, and you're thinking, I think this is bigger than these sources, then I think it's the time to reach out and perhaps consider some mental health therapy. I know Cassie and I, we are both, advocates for mental health care and mental wellness. And there are great things that you can do. Most employers have an employee assistance program that will provide a certain number of sessions free of charge. If you are a parent of a student in the Fargo Public Schools, once again, the Fargo Public Schools does have a grant for teletherapy. And either Cassie or I would be happy to provide you more information about that, but it's with trained clinicians and is free. 30-minute sessions weekly, or whatever the frequency may be, and that might be a good place to start.
Yeah, and that might be enough. That might be a great opportunity to provide an outlet and a safe place for your child to express some feelings, develop some healthy coping strategies. And if not, then that person also is very willing and helpful in providing referrals to other places.
Absolutely. I worked with some families last year, right, where 30 minutes was great, but it wasn't enough. And then we transitioned to another provider in the community. If you're from somewhere outside of Fargo, you could be sitting there wondering, like, how do I even find someone who is like appropriate or who my child would connect well with or could be a good fit. And I would say, you could talk to the pediatrician about that. Some people use psychologytoday.com, and you can search in your area for clinicians and see pictures of them and look at their areas of interest, who they like to serve, if they're taking new, clients, if they'll take your insurance, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who our PTA audience is today, like from what locations, but I think one positive that has come, another positive from this pandemic experience is telemental health. So you're in a rural community that maybe doesn't traditionally have a licensed professional in the mental health realm, or maybe even a school counselor. I guess I'm not sure if everybody has a school counselor or not. But being able to have that telemental health, even from providers that might be housed in Bismarck or in Fargo or in some of these bigger cities, is also an option.
Well, and I know that I talked last year on, I don't know, probably at least one, if not more, of our episodes about that confidentiality piece. And I know that people in more rural communities and people in big towns worry about running into the person that they're seeing or that their child is seeing while they're out and about in the community. And that's a perhaps strength of telehealth. But also remember that everyone is bound by confidentiality. So
yes, absolutely. Okay, so Carly, I'm thinking, like, we have talked about why are we stressed? Well, maybe many of us were overwhelmed even before the pandemic started, and then I think it's important. This is like a whole other webinar. Thinking about priorities, right? Thinking about things that are super important to you and you want to keep in your life, and then also things that you need to say no to.
Yes.
Which was my preface for my soccer conversation, right? I had to say no to a live presentation today because my child's soccer game was the priority. So knowing when to say no, but also knowing when to turn it off. I was asking some adults that I know, like, what are you most stressed out by? I'm stressed out by the negative news. I'm stressed out by constant electronic communication that I'm receiving from all different places. And obviously we have to prioritize, and there are things we're going to have to do, but also knowing when to say no, when to say, like, I can't do that, I'm tapped out, or I can't do that because my family comes first, or my mental health comes first. So yes, prioritizing, and then prioritizing those things that are super important for our kids and for ourselves. Exercise, sleep, nutrition, activities. And if you're like, I'm super worried about COVID, That's great that you're worried about COVID. We appreciate you, but there are activities that are using a lot of precautions to keep kids safe. So I think we can still find some COVID safe things too. And just really thinking about what can you do to take stuff off your plate, but then add in positive things that are going to renew you and renew your children.
I love it. Set limits where you can, right?
Yes.
And do, we call it like self-care, but do things that can bring you joy. And these things don't have to, I think everyone hears self-care and they're like, oh my goodness, I don't have time to go get a massage or something that's going to, or a pedicure or whatever, something that's going to cost money. Self-care does not have to cost money. It can be listening to a favorite song on the radio, calling a friend, watching a show that makes you laugh.
Honestly, I don't have time to go to the gym every day, but I do make time to take my dog on a walk. And I'm still getting exercise. I'm doing something that fills me up. So like you said, there are things that take a lot of time, but there's also little things that you can do throughout your day.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
You cannot pour from an empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
Just today, I walked outside for literally 60 seconds just to breathe the fresh air. Mm-hmm. And I looked up in the sky and I saw this bee of geese flying overhead. And it's for whatever reason, because I'm kind of a nut, reminded me that I am safe on earth here. I'm alive. Life is good. Look at this beautiful sign of nature. And in 60 seconds, I felt rejuvenated. And then I went back into the building. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. And I love that you did that for yourself today.
Thank you.
Adding in, things that you can.
So hopefully during this webinar, you thought of maybe a few things you'd like to ask Carly. I want to express some gratitude for Carly for staying on and answering questions. Also express gratitude for you, dedicated parents and professionals that want to know more information and know how to best support our children. Thank you for listening to us today.
Well, and for taking time on your Saturday. It's great. So thank you. Thank you for listening to us. And as Cassie said, I hope that there you have some takeaways and maybe feel a little more renewed or re-strengthened to keep on keeping on. So
keep on keeping on. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Carly, for that. Awesome.
Thanks.
So I know we're kind of a little bit behind because we started a little bit late. So Nikki and Mary, are we okay with taking a question or two, or do we not have the time with some of the things coming after this?
Let's take a couple questions.
Okay. Any questions for Carly?
I'm kind of curious. This is Yoxim, Carly, and from your observations, do you see more increased issues among the kids? And what are some of the issues that you encounter much more serious than what it was before with the COVID?
That's a really great question, Yoxim. I think that the issues, many of the issues remain the same. However, we're seeing maybe more intensity with some of the same issues, right? Across all, whether it's food, access to food, or mental health care, physical care, the issues are the same. There's just maybe some more intensity related to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is vaping a problem?
Is vaping a problem?
Yes.
Yes. Vaping is a problem. Cassie and I you can check out Here for the Kids. We did a great podcast last year on vaping with Melissa Markegard from Fargo Public Health. And as a parent, I'm a social worker too, right? But as a parent, I was blown away by vaping and scared. And I went home that night and, I have a daughter in middle school and I had a lot to say about vaping. So Yeah.
The other concern, I think, is because we're stuck at home and the use of technology, smartphones and laptops has increased the misuse quite a lot, and parents are not able to check on those. Does that present a lot of issues right now?
Yeah, I think it's a supervision issue, right? As society has evolved, our needs for supervision have changed, right? It's not about kids running around in the neighborhood so much and where are they? There's some of that, but it's parents have to be savvier and more educated about, like, what's my child doing on their device? What kind of sites are they looking at? Putting in parental controls where they can, and especially for devices that are not school-issued devices that parents pay for, to remember that, as a parent, you're paying for that device. So it's okay and within your realm to set limits, and kind of, as Cassie said in this, to check. I read through my daughter's phone probably every other day because I want to know what she says, who she's talking to, what site she's looking at. And it's also a way to show involvement and engagement. As so much of our children's lives have shifted to online, it's a way to show interest and build connection. So, yeah, great questions. Yeah, and I would, encourage any of you watching here today, that we have a wide variety of topics that we talk about on here for the kids. If there's something that you're interested in or you would like us to talk about, connect with Cassie or I, because we're always looking for different things to talk about, because we feel like we talk about the same things. I know we don't, but sometimes it feels that way. So thank you. But yeah.
Can I just add one more? We talk a lot about parents, but are there anything that you have set aside for high school kids, maybe, or even middle school, that that are some topics of concerns to those kids that wanted some answers? I don't know whether you have done any of those for high school kids,
Yeah, this is such a good reminder, so thank you. Yes, I feel like many of the topics we talk about can be generalized to middle school and high school kids, but as Cassie and I were talking about what we wanted to talk about this year, we certainly were looking at some more of those issues that perhaps our middle and high schoolers are also facing. I think because both of us work at the elementary level, that's where we tend to go to, because this is an area that we're immersed in every day, but certainly recognize that middle and high schoolers have a lot of, there's a lot impacting them as well, whether it's these like TikTok challenges or friend conflict, to even, appropriate use of technology. There's a lot that our kids face this way at all ages.
The last thing I would say is this. I just want you to be aware about Impact Foundation, Dakota Medical Impact Foundation. They did a mental health survey. You're probably aware of that in the schools. And they are trying to come up with a project, to do something about that. So I just want you, to kind of be in touch with Impact Foundation, because they're doing something that will really be beneficial to all youth in schools and parents too.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, it sounds like you have a busy agenda. I don't want to keep you all.
No, I appreciate that, Carly. I appreciate you taking the questions, and Yoxim for the questions as well. Carly, I might follow up with you a little bit too. I loved your comment during the video about school as a partnership. And so I think one of the things that, we as a state PTA and local PTAs are just wanting to make sure we're partnering, together, right? Because parents and teachers and staff are all kind of together in there along with students at the older levels. So just want to see how we can help support that partnership, I think, as well, as locally as possible. So maybe I'll follow up with you on that and see if you and Cassie might have ideas that we can share.
Yeah, we'd love that, because really it takes all of us. And I talk to parents. I mean, my primary job is working with parents. We want you to partner with school. School is a partner. How can we work together, right? Because we build healthy kids, we build healthy communities.
Sounds wonderful. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank
Cassie,
you
again for your time and putting that video together. It was wonderful. I have a page full of notes that I'll process later. But anyway, have a great rest of your day and appreciate your time.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you, Carly. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Bye.